Hello, and welcome to And Also There Were Dragons,
a podcast where two girls explore everything fantasy. Two girls that are also an elf and a dragon, by the way.
You decide which is which.
Hint, it's not me. So, today we're going to talk about The Hobbit. The Hobbit was a straight-up fantasy movie that came out in 2013 by director Peter Jackson that was an adaptation of the novel by J.R.R. Tolkien. So, what did you think of The Hobbit?
I really liked it. I had a lot of fun with it. I actually saw it 3 times, so the third time was kind of an accident.
I also enjoyed the movie, although the first time I viewed it, I had less than a super positive reaction because I was expecting a closer adaptation to the book, and as a straight up adaptation, it isn't that good, but because it doesn't follow the book that well is all I'm saying. But as a movie and as an experience and as keeping in the spirit of the book, it really is very good. At first, it was just surprising because I was like, that's not how that scene went. That's not how that scene went. It's like listening to a song that you know and love done as a cover in a very different style. And at first, it's very sort of disorienting, but it can still be pretty. And this one was very good.
It's like listening to a sort of soft rock, except it's being covered by a rap artist. So it's really different.
Yeah. But anyway, I, on
the other hand, did not grow up reading the actual book or anything, so I did not have that problem where I was like, oh, no, that's not right. Though I did kind of, growing up, watch the animated version a couple times. Did not watch past the big squabble between the, at the very end.
One thing
did not get to see the actual fight.
You don't have much of an attention span, do you?
I don't.
Oh, well. So, one thing, the plot of this movie. We're going to start by talking about the plot. The plot sort of followed the book.
Actually, can we bring up one point here?
What?
Since you've read the book multiple times,
Yeah.
I've read to you. So what do you think of them turning it into 3 different movies?
Well, they aren't actually turning the book into 3 different movies. What they're doing is they're taking... There's a lot of side information in The Lord of the Rings, because The Lord of the Rings is more like a full world where he had the entire history planned out and all the different details of these characters' lives and everything figured out beforehand, and then he just sort of chose one of the stories in the world to write about, and that happened to be the War of the Rings.
So that's not what it says in the preface to my copy of the Fellowship of the Ring. In my copy of I have one from the 70s.
Okay.
That is my dad's really old one, and in the preface it says that he wrote The Hobbit first, started to write The Fellowship of the Ring, stopped.
Okay. Let me stop you there. He did write The Hobbit first. That's the first book he wrote, but he was coming up with the entire history of the world since his childhood. The language spoken by the elves, he actually came up with when he was 5. So this is more like
5? What?
Yeah, no, he started making up languages when he was a little kid. So, really, I mean, yeah, that's the first thing he wrote down as a book. He wrote that before the Silmarillion and all the other stuff. But, this is the culmination of, headcanon that a guy had been building up almost his entire life.
Yeah,
so,
this guy is pretty amazing.
Yeah, I think we can all agree that he is an incredible man when it comes to making up worlds. The concept of actually making an entire world up was very new when he wrote The Hobbit. In fact, it was one of the first ones to make up an entire, mappable, different, unique world, whereas most other stories really just took place on Earth. It was a very new and interesting concept, and he did it probably better than anyone I know of that's done it so far. At least for a single man. I guess Star Wars universe is pretty full and complete, but that wasn't worked on by just one man. It's the culmination of a bunch of extra stuff as well. The extended universe. So, we were talking about something.
We were talking about, expanding the book into 3 movies.
Oh, yeah. So what he's doing is he's going through most of the actual text of the Hobbit in the first 2 movies. Although I think the War of the 5 Armies is going to be in the 3rd movie.
Yeah, I think that's going to be most of, actually, the 3rd one.
Yeah. But he's also going to talk about, I think in the 3rd movie, some of the stuff about, I can't say right now if it's going to be good or not, because I haven't seen the other two movies, because they're not out at this time. So I really don't know if it's going to work well, but I think it makes sense to cut the first book into two and then go over the War of the Five Armies in the last one and talk a little bit about what happened in between The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings.
So you feel that rather than expanding the book, like stretching it into 3 movies, you feel they're more filling it out to 3?
It's more filling it out, because there's so many details in this.
Alright.
I know there are people that think it was stretching and that they're trying to cash cow, but I don't know. I think it has enough material there that if they do it well, it'll work great.
So, moving on, what do you think of the tone? Like, there's a lot of tone shifts in this movie. It starts out very light and fluffy and very comedy, and then goes to something, it's not really dark, but I've heard it described as swashbuckling. And that's
Swashbuckling?
Yeah.
That does describe the fights. And I don't really see much of a tonal shift. I mean, yeah, at the beginning they're more like, you know, boop boop a doop, we're in your house drinking all your food somehow.
Oh,
I drank that apple, it was delicious.
we're gonna break all your stuff, but not really. We're gonna sing a song.
There's more like, I don't know. But and then later on they're fighting the goblins, but they're still fighting the goblins in an extremely hilarious way. And you can't say you didn't think it was hilarious, because I heard you giggling that entire fight. That fight was
laughed
hilarious.
even like the 3rd time seeing it.
And yeah, serious stuff does happen, but I don't think necessarily that constitutes a tonal shift. I think people are too used to the idea that something that is comedical comedical is a new word. Something that's comedical and more aimed towards children absolutely has to be, you know, like goofy the entire way, and it can't have serious moments in it. I don't think that's true. What did you think?
I thought that there were some tonal shifts in there, especially like between the first hour and like right before they go to like the ponies get captured. But I thought it flowed very naturally and it worked very well.
Yeah. You know, it's more for children. It is definitely... The Lord of the Rings was for adults, though you can tell kind of by the way it's written. If you just read it, the different books, it's way more for adults. It uses adult language and stuff. Whereas The Hobbit was always for children. I mean, it is a very good, full, and complete book. Just like the first Harry Potter book, for example. But it's still a book that was originally written... with the intention of being read to and read by younger kids.
And you can see that just in like the colors that they use for The Hobbit versus the ones that they used for The Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, so that was okay. I didn't notice any major plot holes, except, you know, like the ones that everyone brings up, like, why can't the eagles fly them closer?
Eagles, why are you such jerks? Because we are!
The actual explanation is that they won't fly over the kingdoms of men. Because men are jerks, I guess. I don't know.
Everyone's a jerk.
Yeah.
Everyone who has the capability of having straight hair is a jerk.
Elves and... Yeah,
Elves.
actually, I was surprised
White.
that they went with the elves are major... I mean, I know that's a thing in the book where the elves are complete jerks, but they really emphasized it in the movie. I mean, come on, he had to get on his elk, go all the way from Mirkwood to Erebor on an elk with an entire army.
They're all
just to
suited up and
stand
ready.
there and go like, no, and just turn around and... That is a lot of effort to be put forth just to screw with someone.
He's got such a bored look on his face, too.
He's like, the elves bore me.
This is a dragon. I thought it was a sideshow pony.
I thought they were putting on a circus. People are actually in danger.
I don't want to deal with this. Let's
I mean,
go home
I just
so
keep
you can feed
imagining,
me grapes.
like, I just keep imagining him and that guy. By the way, the fabulous elf guy is Legolas's father. I just keep imagining him and Legolas chilling out in their throne room, like, meh, meh. Hey Legolas, do you remember that one time that we were gonna help the dwarves and then we didn't? Meh. Oh, their faces as they burned alive was hilarious. Meh. But yeah. I kind of liked how they started out with the backstory of Erebor, actually. I've heard some complaints about that. What do you think?
I thought it was good. I thought it was actually a good setup to actually start with Bilbo in the Shire later on with kind of talking to Frodo and then starting into the book stuff.
Yeah, it was. I like how. The only thing that bugs me is that they imply he wrote the entire Hobbit in one day. Or not even one day, like a few hours. Because they have the implication that this is the day of his party, right? Which means that Frodo runs off to the woods, and this is like the beginning of The Lord of the Rings, the first movie. Which means he wrote the entire Hobbit in like a few hours before he left. Otherwise, he didn't finish it and give it to Frodo. So it's like, really, movie? Really? Okay.
It's asking you to suspend your disbelief a little bit more, but...
My disbelief is so suspended, you have no idea.
It's so suspended, it's like way above the ceiling.
Hey, I already believe in dwarves. I think that's good enough. Anyway, yeah, I thought it was really well put together. I liked the characters. The characters are really what make the movie, I think.
Yeah.
In my opinion. They did change the characters up from the book.
Like in the book, especially with Thorin, who in the book is like, oh, you're a hobbit and you're coming. Okay, that's fine.
Whatever, there's 13.
Whatever.
I mean,
we have a fat guy here, why not?
I mean, he objects a little bit. He does object a little bit. He's like, are you sure, Gandalf? And Gandalf's like, he's the one I chose. And then Thorin's like, okay. But he's a lot more polite in the book. Which, in the movie, it kind of bugged me. I'm like, really? He's letting you into his house. You could just be a tiny bit nicer. Even if they don't, know that Gandalf tricked him. It's like... Of course, Thorin in the movie is so angsty. Oh my god.
Yes. They turned up the angst dial with him.
They were like, let's make him more angsty.
I don't mind it, though. It doesn't, I don't think it comes off as extraneous.
Yeah. Thorin's character is possibly the most fangirled over, I guess because he is kind of woobified. I mean, not even woobified, but he's sort of he's kind of an angsty teen in this. He really is. I mean, he's like...
We won't go talk to the elves, even though they're the only people that can help us.
He's kind of racist, actually, because Elrond's people are very different from the elves that,
Elrond's chill.
The elves that didn't let... Well, because, they're actually a different race, practically. Elrond's people were started by... There's a reason that his daughter is like, I can choose mortal life in the Fellowship of the Ring. It's because Elrond's people are actually what's called half-elves. They have a human ancestor from a long time ago. It was a great king who married an elf woman, and they had one of the first and greatest heroes who ended up becoming the Star of Hope. That's a bunch of side information, but the point is, Elrond's people have a choice between being considered elves and being considered human because they have a human ancestor. They're not even the same race, technically, as whatever... What is that guy's name?
I don't know.
Freaking Legolas's dad.
Buffy elf.
So blaming them, it's kind of racist. It's a little, and then again, he's a little racist from the get-go because he sees a hobbit and he's instantly like, I'm fucking idiot. I don't care. Okay.
Hobbits are dumb and elves are dumb and orcs are ugly and I hate everyone.
Crawling in my skin, these minds they will not yield. Fear. Okay.
Yeah, but they also with doing this, with turning up the angst style, they also created a character arc between him and Bilbo.
I like him. I think he's a bit more realistic than Book Thorin, actually. Just before we get to the character arc between him and Bilbo, I'm not saying that it's bad. I like it because it's more realistic. This is a guy who was a young man. He was a prince. He was a prince with a father who hadn't even taken the throne, so he was going to be hundreds of years from taking the throne in Dwarven terms. I mean, so he was nowhere near ready, and there was no reason he should be, to take any sort of leadership. And then he was kind of forced into that situation when a dragon came and killed everything. Mm-hmm. I think his angstiness is a lot more realistic than in the book, where he's just kind of like...
In the book, it's kind of like... And
but in the movie, he's a good leader, in spite of all of that. So
he earns his right to be angsty.
Yeah. He earns his right to be... I think he earns his right to be a bit angsty. Mm-hmm. Then there was Bilbo, and most of the changes in the book were done for a very, very specific reason, which is part of the reason why I don't actually mind it that much, because almost all the changes were made so that Bilbo could have more of a story arc in the first part of the book, which he didn't necessarily have in the book because it was a book. That wasn't the end, so why would you end the story arc there? Why would you have a story arc that ends there? But in the movie, they had to make it more cohesive as its own little thing. And also, it's a good story arc.
Yeah. I like that story arc a lot. It really pays off.
Would you care to explain what story arc we're talking about?
Sure. So, like, at the very beginning, Thorin's like, Hobbits, I hate you. No, he's gonna be a terrible burden, and it's gonna die, and I'm not gonna be responsible.
And it's not just Thorin either. Bilbo himself doesn't believe at all that he can do anything. He's like, nah.
And I think mostly because of Thorin. The other dwelves don't.
No,
believe
I think
him
mostly
either.
because of him. He was like that from the beginning.
No, I
before
mean
he
like
even
the
met.
other dwarves don't believe in Bilbo
Yeah,
at all.
Balin's okay with him actually. I think it's
Beaufort's like his best friend.
Beaufort's the only one that's
Buddy.
sort of nice to him as far as we see. But Beaufort's just kind of a really chill guy.
Keely and Feely are like making fun of him sometimes.
Yeah,
like,
but
playing
Keely
tricks
and
in there.
Feely. Keely and Feely are the boy bands
Yeah.
of the dwarf world. Come on.
Yeah.
They're like 12.
Keely
Come
are
on.
bros-ish with
They're
them.
like 12 in Dwarven. They don't.
Yeah.
Keely doesn't even have a full beard. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
He's got like a little scruff. That is no man. But anyway.
Anyways. So yeah, and then that goes, because they added sort of like they added a big antagonist guy for Thorin specifically.
Yeah. Well, they didn't add him. He was around, but I think it was kind of handled before he started heading back to Erebor. But anyway.
Yeah, it wasn't as much of a thing in the book. They expanded that into being more of a thing.
Yeah. In the book, it was the goblins, I believe, that chased them to a tree. And it was the same scene, but it wasn't orcs.
Yeah, there wasn't the pale orc there.
Yeah, and then
The pale
Thorin
orc's a new
didn't
guy.
have to fight for his life. They just got grabbed by the
Yeah.
thing. But anyway.
So Bilbo saves him from that guy, and then that leads to this big bro moment between them where they become friends.
Yeah. Which, it's kind of slapdash if you think about it.
But
I kind of think if you watch the movie carefully enough, it seems like they're already kind of developing that sort of relationship.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there was a reason they had there's a reason behind everything they do in these movies, especially when it's a rewrite. And they specifically showed that Thorin was awake and looking angsty, as he almost always does, when Bilbo was talking to Boffer about leaving, because he was considering leaving, and he's like, well,
Yeah.
Thorin says I can't do it.
Thorin doesn't believe in me.
Thorin Senpai has noticed me. Oh, we're gonna have to talk about Slash eventually, aren't we?
Yeah, we are.
Alright, we'll get to that in a second.
Yeah.
The point is, I think the implication was that Thorin didn't dislike Bilbo, but he really didn't think he belonged there, and he just assumed that Bilbo was gonna get killed. Which is really reasonable if you consider the fact that almost everyone he knows was killed in a war. Or by a dragon. Or by a dragon in a war. So he's seen a lot of people who were nicer, more innocent folks that he probably liked and got close to who were just killed, like, probably right before his eyes. And I think that's the implied reason he doesn't like Bilbo. It's not necessarily that he doesn't like him as a person, it's that he's like, this guy is gonna get himself killed.
He has no place going on this treacherous adventure.
Which, to be fair, he totally doesn't. But Gandalf is a shipper. So
Gandalf is a troll and a shipper.
So that's how that went. All right, I think
Leads
it's
us
time
onto
to
the
talk
Slash.
about. I think it's time to talk about Bilbo Baggins. For those of you who don't know, and for those of you who are sane and therefore don't know, Bilbo Baggins is the Tumblr name for the Slash pairing of Bilbo and Thorin.
Yep.
And it sure is a thing. I'm not necessarily a slasher, but it really is hilarious to watch the movie and pretend that all of the elves and Gandalf are slashers.
Yeah, the second time we watched it together.
We watched
like,
this
sat
the
in our own
shipping version,
corner,
and it was
and
great.
we just made comments all the time about
Like the
shipping.
proper Galadriel, you are not alone, Gandalf. I ship it too.
Oh, or like when Bilbo's
Our
asking-
stance on shipping, or at least my stance on shipping, is I don't mind it if it makes some amount of sense within the characters. And I don't mean necessarily sticking to the sexualities they show in the book or whatever. Because, whatever, you want to switch it so they're gay, I don't care that much. But it does bug me when the pairings are incestual or don't make any sense.
Yeah.
There's another pairing, which is Feely and Keely, and I'll let you take that one, Amy, because you know more about that.
Yeah. Okay, so this is for the internet. Incest is weird and bad. Stop it.
Yes. And, before anyone argues, going, well, technically incest isn't that bad a thing on the short term.
Incest tears families apart.
Well, yes. Some people are going to go, well, like in ancient Egypt, all the pharaohs married their sisters. I would like to point out that one of the last pharaohs along the line that did marry their sisters died of, that was King Tut, and he died at the age of, I think, 12-ish?
Yeah, he died when he was, barely a teen.
And whether or not it was because of malformations of his body, or because he fell off a horse, there's a lot of different theories. But here's the thing. Here's why incest is a bad thing. And this isn't just us being prudish, because, if it's just a sexual thing that we don't find sexual, I'm not going to judge anyone, I don't care, but incest specifically is I can't believe I'm talking about this in a fantasy podcast. I can't believe I have to tell people this, but humans have a lot of different alleles in their genes, and a lot of them are very dangerous but recessive. In other words, they only show up if there is a pair of those alleles being paired in someone. When siblings have children together, or mother and child, or whatever, when people who are close enough related have children with each other, the chances of two dangerous recessive alleles resulting in the child drastically increase. That is what causes all the malformations and the bad genetic diseases to form in children of incest. And that's why it's probably not cool.
And that's why it's illegal to marry anyone before your second cousin.
Is it second cousin?
Yeah,
I think it's different in Alabama.
It might be, but I don't know all the states.
That is not an Alabama joke. I honestly just think it's different in Alabama.
Yeah, some states have different rules, but the general one is second cousin.
Yeah. But anyway, that's incest, and it's weird. And it also annoys me because Feely and Keely have a very close relationship, and it annoys me that the internet must constantly make everything that is a close relationship sexual.
Yeah.
I guess I get it. They're both young, hot men, and I guess some women get off on just imagining them bump up against each other, but it's weird.
It's really weird.
Alright, moving on from incest.
Anyways.
I don't know. What other pairings are there?
There's Bofer and Feely.
Yeah, there's I think that's just a crack pairing.
Kind of adorable in...
I think Bofer X anything is adorable, but that's because Bofer is the best dwarf that ever existed ever in the ever of ever.
He is quite huggable. I have a soft spot for Feely for whatever reason.
There is none huggable than Bofer, I will tell you that.
The moment Bofer is the most huggable of the dwarves.
He is! I mean, he's even designed, he's got cuddly hand-knitted scarf and little dealy bopper hand warmer things.
Thingies and his little hat.
Yeah. He was a toy maker, for
hat.
God's sake.
Yeah.
The rest of them, they went off and they became armors and blacksmiths and stuff. He's I'm gonna make toys.
I'm gonna break all the toys.
He's gonna be the best plan that I ever had.
Yeah.
My plan right now is to make every toys.
Oh, great.
Every toys.
Yeah. I don't think there are any prevalent pairings that I can think of.
No. Oh wait, there's some people who pair Boffer and Bilbo, which is alright. They're just.
I think Bilbo
girls.
with almost anybody is just because Bilbo is adorably huggable.
Oh my God.
Hobbits just have this natural ability to be huggable.
I hope the Japanese never get a hold of this. They'll somehow turn it into a harem series. Oh, please don't be offended if you're Japanese. We just mean anime in general, not Japanese people. Anime subculture is different from Japanese culture in the same way that cartoon American culture is different from American culture. Just to be clear.
Yeah.
But seriously, imagine they're gonna turn Bilbo into a beautiful chick, and there's gonna be all these big burly yellow dwarves oh, Bilbo-san, we have to go get.
No, they'll do some weird thing where
we have to go take back Erebor, Bilbo-san.
The 13 dwarves will be they'll change the 13 dwarves to hot chicks, and then Bilbo will be the only guy.
Oh yeah, no, that's more likely. You're right. That's
likely.
Way more likely for what they do.
More.
And
they
then
already
there's
have the long
Thorin-san. Thorin-senpai.
And I don't know where this whole senpai.
Oh my gosh, Thorin would totally be a Sundari. Thorin would be the best Sundari. Thorin would be the greatest. Okay, well, anyway,
that was kind of weird, but we're back in the podcast.
Sorry about the little blip. I accidentally hit a pause button.
You did a thing on X. What were we talking about?
We were talking about the Hobbit, the harem series.
Somebody didn't do that because we thought of it and said it.
You know what? As long as it's a parody, I don't even care. It might be really hilarious. Although I prefer if all the dwarves were kept as men and then Bilbo was just a really girly man or was a woman. Because that to me is funnier for some reason. I've never actually seen a harem where it's the opposite way.
Yeah, because I don't think it really usually works that way in terms of like demographics who will
Or
watch it
if they
and
are
enjoy
women,
it.
they have to be true dwarven women. Because remember, dwarves are so manly, even their women are men. That's in canon. That is totally in canon.
It's actually like during my third watching of it, I saw that there were actually some dwarven women running away from Smaug.
Yeah, there are. Dwarven women don't tend to have beards, but sometimes do.
Yeah.
But they are alike in manner, in culture, and in dress as to the men. And so, like, outsiders are like, I'm so confused right now.
So we just call them. They're basically guys.
Now, let's talk about the pretty dwarves. And by that I mean, why did they have the dwarves be so pretty? Like, 3 of them.
I think
all of them are dwarves, except for, like, Thorin, Keely, and Feely, and they're like, whatcha? It's like, what are
Thorin
these things?
is
Not like the other. 3 of these things are handsome.
No, I think that the reason why they did that with Thorin was just because a bit more marketable or something.
Because he's so majestic.
He's so majestic, and
You can't step to this majesty.
God knows why they did that with Feely and Keely, though.
Well, they're his relatives.
Probably.
I find it odd because I can't tell if they're implying that, like, they're handsome because they're the king and the king is always like, kings are always super handsome, or if it's like the opposite and like that's really ugly for dwarves because they have small noses and like barely any beards.
Mm-hmm.
And like the implication is that they were the result of like generation upon generation of dwarven inbreeding.
No, but like at the beginning of the movie, Thorin does have a longer beard, and it's like tied to the little
that's right.
ponytail beard thing.
That's right, and he sort of trims it when
He like takes it off.
I
guess
think
he
they
thought it
all
looked
sort
dumb.
of trim their beards when they go hang out with, because they go to the human kingdom afterwards.
Yeah.
Which I guess makes sense.
So I guess he kind of cut it during there.
Yeah.
Maybe he just didn't want to be anything like his great grandfather or whatever.
Oh yeah.
His giant weird
Ladies
fence
just
beard.
can't touch this beard, this fence beard. Okay, so the king, I don't know, I assume you've seen this movie, but he wasn't a character that was featured through most of it.
Yeah.
So his grandfather, the king under the mountain, had this beard that was like to his waist, which is fine because you know he's a dwarf. That's what they do.
That's how they are.
In the book, it says they tucked their beards into their belts, so they're long beards. But he had like weird black fencing all over his beard.
Black and gold, like zigzag fencing.
Yeah, it was like he was like, this beard, my son, is too fabulous. All the lady dwarves, all the honey dwarves will be one up on this beard. I gotta put a fence around it. Stop all the honey dwarves.
You can't see the face I'm making, but
And then Thorin was like, okay, alright.
not gonna be anything like that, old coot.
Yeah. Okay, that's... like at one point Fiona was like, Uncle, your beard is getting almost as long as Grandpa. And then he was like, excuse me, like he leaves, he comes back, it's like short, like, what, never mention my grandfather.
Yeah.
Um,
Dude, like, all of the dwarves in this movie have really, really intricate hair designs. Styles.
I think the movie really does excel in all the little details.
Yeah,
like they changed the eye color of the actor of Boffer is the one I noticed it most, slightly, so that it was more dwarven, so it's like it was more like coppery than just brown, which I think is something from mid-canon. But anyway.
Yeah. But like all of the dwarves, all their costumes are so finely detailed.
Yeah.
And
they had
so
the actor who was
pretty.
playing Feely, who was the youngest, right? Feely's the youngest.
No, Keely's the youngest.
Freaking these dwarfs. Alright, Keely. They had the actor playing Keely, who is the youngest dwarf there, have sort of a 5 o'clock shadow instead of a beard. I like that little detail because it does show his age compared to the others. It's kind of cute, actually. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
he's a little baby dwarf.
But I love how lavish Thorin's costume is, because he's got beads in his hair, his long hair, and he's got a ton of fur, a ton of leather, and a ton of velvet.
I'm picturing something very different from Thorin from that description.
Yep.
Oh my god. He's just so majestic. You just don't know. He's got like 50 layers on, too.
Yeah.
God, it must have taken the trolls forever to strip all those dwarves.
Ugh.
Because they strip them down to, like, their long, like, their
Long Johns.
Their long johns for some reason. Or maybe he had them stripped.
Probably.
Why didn't we get to see that scene? That would have been hilarious. Bilbo, because they didn't strip Bilbo, so Bilbo would just be standing there awkwardly, where like the dwarves are like slowly taking off. one of the trolls was, hold on a second. No, keep stripping.
The look I'm giving you.
Oh baby. Yeah, all the way down to their long johns that cover everything. Oh, honey. This has been the Sexy Dwarf Hour. Now we're back to the regularly scheduled programming. Alright.
Anyways, can we talk about CG for a moment?
CG?
Like, yeah, the CG in the movie.
I didn't. Alright, go ahead.
Yeah, so like I thought that basically everything that was there was really good, except for the dragon tail in like the first few minutes of the movie. I thought that looked really dumb.
I didn't really notice.
It looked really CG. Like you could tell it was CG compared to the other stuff.
I don't know how much, but I think a lot of the stuff that they did was actually practical effects.
Yeah, like all the orc stuff, except for the pale orc was done.
In case you don't know, practical effects are almost always better than CG whenever you can afford them or make them.
There's something about seeing something tactile and actually there.
You can always tell, no matter how well the CG is done, you can always tell it's CG.
Mm-hmm.
That takes you out of it.
So you can't always pick it out, but the back of your mind can always do it.
Well, the reason is because CG is too fluid. It's too perfect. As odd as that sounds, it's honestly true. CG tends to make things perfectly symmetrical looking, and also it moves in a very like uniform way, whereas humans are a bit more jerky and stuff. That's why the better CG is like the best CG I've seen is probably Gollum. Honestly,
Gollum is really good in this movie.
And they do all of the Gollum movements with motion capture, so that it actually mimics a real human moving around, and that makes it look so much more realistic.
Yeah, so like they have the guy in the little dot suit like running around as like acting out Gollum,
which is hilarious to him. Like Martin Freeman's like in full costume, as Bilbo, and they're in like a cave, and then a guy with like a dot suit comes out. Hello, I'm Smeagol.
I'm gonna run around. Oh my god!
Speaking of which, I love how they played more on the multiple personalities in this movie.
Mm-hmm. Like that's not in the book, is it?
Not as much. But I mean, in the later books, he's very multiple personalities. But
yeah, but in the Hobbit,
that's part of what makes the character so hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you can still sort of tell in the Hobbit that he's got a multiple personality-esque thing.
Yeah.
But it's just so funny. We knows the way. We knows. Shut up.
I didn't say anything. We wasn't talking to you. Well, my favorite thing though was the head tilt when he's like telling him, and if you lose, then we eat you whole.
If it loses, we eats it whole. Mm-hmm. He didn't even say if you. He said if it.
If it
loses, we eats it whole.
That whole scene was really funny.
The funniest thing about that scene to me is that both of them are lying. I mean, Bilbo is not just going to put down his sword and let the Gollum eat him. Mm. And Gollum, even if he loses, his plans to grab the ring and bludgeon him to death anyway.
Yeah. Like,
so,
that was a scene that was still funny on the third run through.
I know, right?
Yeah.
I just love, they pause and they think about it and they're sort of mumbling to each other and like, give us a chance! It was so well acted. The acting in this movie, I wouldn't call it... What am I trying to say? I wouldn't call it Oscar-y, I guess is what I'm trying to say. It's not over-dramatic and super, like, some of the parts are, but it is incredibly natural. Like, I can really believe that actual people are talking like this.
Like, Martin Freeman
actual
is the
Hobbit
best
people.
Choice for Bilbo Baggins that I can think of.
He's so naturally awkward when he wants to be. It's great.
It's fantastic.
Like
he's just wandering around his house and he's just going, bop, bop, bop.
Yeah, like, he's so good at adding little details of sort of, like, that kind of show you that Bilbo's kind of a dull person at the beginning without even telling you. Like, him sort of wandering about his house, him... I also love the part at the scene with Gandalf at the very beginning was just so perfect. He's just like, I gotta get out of here.
He's been playing with his butt and stuff.
What do you mean? Anyway, yeah, he was,
How about you put my jump drive transformer down?
But I love Ravage. Anyway, it was just so naturally awkward. It was great.
Mm.
That was one thing, like, I really like that because in the movies it always kind of bugs me when people stand and deliver like a big dramatic speech. Because, like, you can always tell when they're doing it because their voice takes on a certain, like, tone as though they're giving a speech as a, as an elected official or something.
Yeah.
And they pose dramatically and the wind blows to their hair.
And doves are in the background.
It's always over to me. And, if you're really into a movie, that can be fine. But if you're not so, it kind of takes me out of it anyway. And so I like when he gives his almost speech at the very end where he's like, I came back because you haven't got a home, it was taken. I like how, that sounds like a way someone might actually say that. Like, he's actually thinking about exactly what he wants to say carefully before saying it.
Like, he's kind of bumbling about a bit.
Yeah. It feels real to me. I don't know, maybe some people think his acting was stilted, but I thought it was great.
I like it.
I thought it felt really real.
I just like that style.
And it was good for Bilbo's character.
Mm-hmm.
That was kind of weird.
That was a nice pause.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what else. I think that might be about all we have to say about this movie for now.
Wait, did you think that any of these scenes were extraneous to the actual film?
Extraneous?
Yeah.
I wouldn't say so.
Like, on the third watching through, even though it was funny to see everybody completely ignore, wasn't it Saruman?
Oh, Saruman?
Saruman during the sword scene. It went on.
It's okay. The thing about it is, it's being set up as less of a prequel and more of like what was originally supposed to be the first movie. So it's actually setting up foreshadowing for something we already know about, which is dull to us. But in future generations who will probably watch The Hobbit before they watch The Lord of the Rings, it's actually going to be pretty good. So I have sympathy for that. Like. I understand what they're trying to do.
First two times, I was like, yeah. Third time, I'm like, this scene, it goes on.
You watched the movie 3 times within a month, and you're complaining about how some of the scenes that you've seen 3 times in a month might be boring.
I'm saying to, like, some...
That's like me saying, I listened to this song on repeat 20 times, and now some of the lyrics just seem extraneous.
No. It's like, if you think of this in that someone who has never seen any version or read The Hobbit before comes in to watch this movie.
Yeah, but the first time you did that. Yeah, the first time you did that.
But I was into The Lord of the Rings before that.
Yeah.
I was already in on the fandom.
But that's the thing. That's what that scene is setting up.
Yeah, but the other people who have not seen that will not get that impact and thus will not care.
Yeah, Amy, because the people that were seeing that will have... It's setting up foreshadowing for the later movies and the later books. Or the later movies. So, even if you haven't seen those movies, you go in and you see it and you're like, oh, there's a necromancer? Oh, there's dangerous stuff going on. That's the entire point of those scenes. It's not even for people who've seen the movies before, is my point. It's for people who are watching The Hobbit as the first movie. Because when this is all over, people will probably... Like, our children would probably watch The Hobbit before they watch The Lord of the Rings.
But... Paige, you're missing my point a little bit of that scene feeling a bit extraneous when the movie is 3 hours long.
I don't feel it's extraneous. Part of the reason why is that, again, you said that this only bugged you on the 3rd watch through within a month. If that's true, if you can watch it twice within a month and not bug you, and then the 3rd time it bugs you a little bit, I'd say it's probably just a scene that is slightly less involved in the immediate plot, but more involved in the overall plot, which is important, I think.
I don't know, because, like, the original trilogy did fine with it without that scene, so I don't... Never mind.
The original trilogy?
The Lord of the Rings trilogy.
Well, I mean, yeah, it didn't have that particular scene in the Lord of the Rings trilogy. It'd be kind of random. Hey, Elrond, remember that time I was here with dwarves? Like, flashback to that? Man, that was crazy. That was totally the shit. And that one dwarf was being
what I'm trying to say.
Well, I don't understand what you're trying to say.
From the point of view of someone who is not, like, already in the fandom and does not care to see that scene.
But that's my point, Amy. That scene is for people who aren't already in the fandom. That scene is for people who haven't already seen the movies. You find it dull because you already know about all that stuff. But that scene is setting up stuff that comes on later.
I don't know, man. I just think that it could be seen as kind of dull. Like,
It's not that dull.
Some people.
You only found it dull the third time you
Let's just
watched
move on
it.
from this. We're just rambling in circles now.
I just find it funny. You're like, after 3 times of watching it, that particular scene was kind of dull.
No, I'm just like seeing that.
Did you find it dull the first time?
No, I liked it. It's just that the third time you're like, wow, this is a long movie.
Yeah, exactly. I felt that way the second time I watched it, but I didn't feel about that scene. I felt
It's
it
because you're joking the whole way through.
Yeah, but I didn't feel it about that scene, not just because we were joking. I felt it even though we were joking the whole way through on the goblin stuff. Because it's like, okay, they're gonna spend like an hour fighting these goblins. It's gonna be super dramatic. Oh god, on and on.
But like, in order to get someone to sit in a movie theater for 3 hours, it takes a lot.
Yeah, and everyone I've talked to on their first go round, they were enthralled. They didn't find any scenes that were that extraneous, except for John. But John's incredibly picky.
John and Tyler are both really picky.
Yeah.
Have you heard Tyler's opinion on it yet?
No.
Anyway.
Don't talk about people that they don't know. The point is, I didn't find it that extraneous. I found it's packed. They're trying to add in a lot of stuff. I don't think that's a bad thing.
There's never a moment aside from them walking around, like
oh
the
my
big
god, there are
sweeping
like
shots
20
of
shots of them
Yeah.
just like walking.
Aside from those scenes, there's always something happening for you to pay attention to.
There's always something there to remind you. Anyway, but yeah, I don't know. I felt it was a good movie.
Mm-hmm.
All in all, I didn't think it was that extraneous. I think my only real complaint, I guess my only real complaint was that they really didn't. I would have liked it if they had at least established that some of the dwarves were kind of broing out with Bilbo. I mean, aside from Fili and Kili, who shoved him into giants.
I don't know. It felt like they had grown to have a bit of a connection with him.
Well, I mean, but Boffer is like begging Bilbo not to leave when there's no established scene other than that scene to show that, some of them he actually is close to. Like there's no. Until that scene and then the hug, there's no implication that the dwarves necessarily like him at all.
Oh, well, they come to rescue him.
No, they don't.
Yeah, from the cave trolls.
Yeah, they come to rescue him, but they would have done that if anyone is in danger.
Yeah.
I don't know, I guess. And also, Fili and Kili were the one that shoved him into that, so they didn't come to rescue him. They came to rescue Kili. Because Kili ran out.
Oh, yeah.
Kili was like, we'll come get you if you get in trouble. And then Kili ran out, and then the rest of them ran out. They were going to rescue the prince. They weren't rescuing the Hobbit. Although they did lay down their arms so that he wouldn't die. But yeah. I think there's a difference between not wanting someone you vaguely know to get horribly torn apart before your eyes and actually liking them and wanting them to stay. That's my only complaint. Maybe you could have taken out some of the stuff where you were rather interestingly setting up things for later in the book or the later movies.
Yeah.
And put in, like, just a scene or two of, I don't know, Bilbo chilling out with Boffer, or hanging out with Fili and Kili, or characterize one of the other dwarves with that. Just to show that he does get along with some of them. They don't all hate him, and some of them actually want him to stay. I don't think that just having suddenly, like, I'm gonna go back to Rivendell. No, you can't do that! That felt a little bit forced to me.
Like, going back to the... I don't know where I was going with that.
Okay.
But no, but one thing that is interesting, like, the bits in Mirkwood with Radagast, I did not find, like, that was never uninteresting and fun to me to watch, though, like, even on the third time through, that was still fun to watch, yet the bit where they're in they're just talking about, oh, look at the sword, oh, it's sword, that shouldn't be here, oh, I know, man, and he's like, well, how did you get the sword?
That scene
I
is
don't
like
know, man.
5 minutes.
Yeah. No, that scene is like 10 minutes.
But it's important, though. It establishes where they get sting.
It establishes... No, not that scene.
Huh?
No, I'm talking about when, like, in Rivendell.
Oh.
When they're talking to Solomon.
Where they're like...
Sorry, I can never say his name right.
Oh, that scene.
Yeah, that's the scene I was talking about.
Yeah, I know. I thought you were talking about a different scene.
No.
I thought you'd actually made an original complaint. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, like...
I'm kidding. Anyway.
I'm pretty sure you don't ever hear anything about that sword for the rest of the next 2 movies.
You don't know. We haven't seen them. You can't make complaints about things we don't know about. I could just say, I bet Bilbo dies in the next movie and all of his character development is completely pointless. That would be real.
You would be incredibly wrong, but yes, you could.
Wouldn't that be hilarious? Oh,
No, that wouldn't be.
Hilarious in like a terrible way.
No, that wouldn't
The
be.
next movie starts out with all the dwarves and like Bilbo's died of dysentery.
I don't see how you would find that funny.
It'd be funny in that no one would see it coming.
I think it'd be funny in that you're a terrible person and you should stop because you're
I'm a
terrible.
wonderful person. Anyway, what happened? I get that you're complaining about that scene, but that scene overall is not that long. It really isn't. It's like Saruman comes in and goes, he smokes mushrooms, and then sits there and talks for maybe like freaking 45 seconds or something, while Gandalf and she have a conversation in their head, and then she takes out the sword and is like, "Wha!" and then he's like, "Oh, that can't be a real sword," and that's it. It's maybe 5 to 6 minutes, and you're really gonna complain that much about it?
No, man, I think it's gonna.
No, we're hugs.
Sitting on me.
We're hugs.
You hugs this way without your arm around me.
Oh. Anyway.
So we're at like 45 minutes.
We're so good at this. We're so professional.
So I think now would be kind of a probably because we're rambling on about the same thing and fighting over it.
Because I think you're being silly.
I think that I have a valid point
No, you don't.
in terms of like people who don't care to see that scene, like in the grand
third
scheme,
time.
the grand scheme of like how long this movie is.
I bet you anything that scene and that sword come back and play a role. Because it was kind of important. It kind of established a lot of things. Also that do made a loud noise. That was the chair.
Yeah, I didn't think about that until I did it. So.
Okay. Well, anyway, it's about time we wrapped up.
Yeah.
So, this time there actually were dragons, although we didn't see it.
Mm-hmm. We talked about its tail for a second, and we saw its eye, and I thought that was really cool looking.
It was woken up by the most evil bird in existence.
Damn you, thrush!
Damn you, thrushes! We want ravens, not thrushes.
We do want a thrush.
Yeah, they want a thrush to beat on the...
To
Never
knock
mind, it's
on the
complicated. There's
door.
birds, okay? There's birds that are...
Birds and stuff and birds. That's what.
Oh, I wanted to talk about the dwarf singing. Oh, it doesn't
Oh!
matter.
Well, we can talk for a second.
No, it's fine.
It was great. That's our response.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the original
loved it.
book, the only other thing I have to say about that is that in the original book, they
Lug giant instruments.
they
around
had
them.
like they played the harp, which kind of annoyed me in that Elven scene where they're like harp playing. I don't know if any of them actually do that, maybe not, but like it's like because Thorin plays the harp.
Yeah.
That's his instrument. In the original scene, they all have like
giant freaking harp.
they all bring like these gigantic like cellos and instruments with them because dwarven culture is very centered around music, which is kind of sad that they left that out of the movie. Not necessarily the giant instruments because that was a bit cartoonish, but I'm complaining about it being cartoonish when like 13 dwarves like basically take a hobbit on an adventure to kill a dragon
With a wizard.
who's killed many dragons. Hundreds. Anyway.
Maybe.
Cough.
Let's start a giant fight. Oh, about it.
What?
That's what happened.
Anyway,
In like the movie.
it's too bad that in the movie
It
they
was
left
a
that
good
out.
joke. Shut
But
up.
I think that's about all we have to say thus far.
Other than they are great singers,
All right.
and I have that on my iPad.
They're very good singers, although I think my autotune might be involved. Anyway,
I don't know.
please download this if you enjoy it. Send it to your friends and relatives and bug all your neighbors with it if you would like to. And
Make your dogs listen to it.
keep on fantasizing, people. Bye. Bye.